Hey all, it's late October 2023. I'm out in the garden today doing some bed prep work for my cool season crops. I'm going to be putting some beets in and ran into an issue. I want to share the mistake with you so that you too don't make the same mistake I did. So I've been at my current place for about 11 years, and this garden bed that you see in front was one of the first things I put in. The bed is approximately 28 feet long and about 3.5 feet wide. So pretty good space for growing vegetables. Back when this was first installed, there really weren't many fruit trees in my yard. I really got more into planting fruit trees in the last 7 years. So just on logistics, you can see this also wasn't put in the best location because it's right off my east wall. So that faces west, and it gets a lot of really intense heat and sun during the summer. So this bed tends to dry out more too, just based on location. All right, so fast forward 11 years later, I've got this pretty mature pomegranate. It's been in the ground a very long time. And I have a very mature Chicago hardy fig tree. I have another fig tree beyond that and a very large frankincense plant. So I've got trees right near this bed, and that's a problem. It's a problem that I battle every year, every time that I go to prep my bed annually. For my cool season crops, I take the opportunity to go and clean the bed out. And what I mean clean the bed out is from these tree roots. You can see a pile of tree roots here that I just pulled out this morning. The majority of these are fig roots. You can see they're feeder roots. They're going into the raised beds. They're opportunistic. You know, the trunk is just a few feet away. Even though I piled the bottom of this with several layers of premium weed barrier, in the end, your trees are always going to win. They're going to plunge through that weed barrier eventually and get through for the food and water that it's in search of. It doesn't matter how deeply you soak this tree, trees are always going to follow the path of least resistance. If they have access to, water nearby that's on the surface, they're going to go that way. Plus, as we talked about, tree roots, the feeder roots, tend to want to be in the top foot of soil anyways. So this tree has definitely breached this garden bed. It did so very early on in its life. And this right here is not all that uncommon. I pretty much have to do this every year. So you can see I do have a cultivator to help me with the job. I have to pull out the large roots manually, just by hand. But I use the cultivator to get out the thick mass of roots as well. So I do till once a year in this process. So of course, tilling is not the popular thing to do with organic gardening. Definitely disturbs the microorganisms and all of that soil life. But I find that it quickly comes back. I can always re-inoculate this with mycorrhiza if need be. But this is something that I have to do every year in order to get my vegetables to grow. Because if they're competing with tree roots like that, they are not going to do well. So I may give up on this spot and just go ahead and plant trees in this raised bed eventually, or try to relocate it. But I really advise against open bottom raised beds like something like this where it's concrete, or even those metal style beds. I had total fail on my Vigo raised beds. All the roots of the fruit trees infiltrated it. It was a mess to pull all that out, and I really want to avoid that. Even if I could find a space away from all my trees, those dedicated, which I don't have in this yard at this point because I planted it all out in trees. But even if I could find a space far away, chances are roots of trees would eventually get into that area. Even trees, 40, 50 feet or more away. Roots definitely extend out over time. So even when you think you're far away enough from a tree, chances are you're probably not. So my best advice would be to get a raised bed that has a actual sealed bottom, drill holes into that bottom, and then seat that raised bed on top of brick. you know, like some retaining wall or just common cinder brick. That air gap is going to guarantee the tree roots won't invade the garden bed. I'm sure as you've noticed, if you have container plants sitting on the soil and you remove that pot, you'll find all these roots are trying to go up into your container. So that air gap is really the only way to stop those roots. They'll find a way through the drainage holes if you have contact from your raised bed to the ground. So just really wanted to take this opportunity to show you this huge mistake that I made when I put this bed in. Would definitely do things over differently if I could. And if you can, avoid that mistake, because it is a pain in the butt to do this every year. Definitely several hours of work to get all those roots out, and it's a never-ending problem. You know, I'll have that same issue next year. So I hope you found some value in this, learned something. Thanks for watching, and happy gardening.